Hey everybody, this is Undead Viking. How's it going? The game I am reviewing today is not Patrician Wars, as you can see on this box, and on this box, and on this box, but in fact it is a game called Eternity Wars. It just recently underwent a name change, and I think it just went live in Kickstarter. So when you see Patrician Wars, just think Eternity Wars instead. Eternity Wars is a game of combat and resource collection, and it actually is the whole goal behind the design of the game, and something I think it does excellently actually, is it's trying to replicate the feel of a real-time strategy game, such as the old, not World of Warcraft MMO, but like the old Warcraft games. And also StarCraft, and from Blizzard, and there's been a ton of others, you know, that came out after that big explosion of them in the 90s. The game uses cards and sliders to use sliders to represent the buildings and the units that you'll be making and using, and it also uses sliders that allow you to keep track of your resources. You don't have a big stack of cubes or anything like that. And it's my understanding that whereas I have, let me just show you what I have, and you'll see these when I show you. I have these sliders that like keep track of how much like food or gold or population that you have. There's actually going to be an app that you can download for free onto your smartphone that you can keep track of it, so you don't have this this paper. This works just fine. And if you wanted to, I suppose you could even just, if you have a bunch of cubes lying around, you could use those as well. But as always, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to play the game, show you these really cool maps, show you these really cool battle maps that you get to use to live out the battles of your units and your powers, and then after that we will come back here and I'll tell you exactly what I think of the game, and then hopefully somewhere along the line during this video you'll see something you like or see something interests you, and you'll go to the Kickstarter page and you'll back this game so you can get it published, and you can get a copy of it to put on your shelf. So, alright, well, let's show you how to play not Patrician Wars, but Eternity Wars. Alright. Okay, this is one of the maps that you will get with the base game. It's obviously the Coastal Wars, as you can probably guess, because you can see you're by the coast. Alright, so very basically this is a game of area control, obviously, and also just it's a game of two sides pitted against each other. Now, I've used the two basic like groups or clans or races or whatever, however you want to call it, that the game comes with. This is the Empire, and this is the Thals. The Empire is just kind of like, you know, well, the government or whatever, or what have you. And so like here's their main guy, Emperor Brutus, and you know he has a little card, and then you know, Genghis the Brutal, obviously this big giant barbarian type guy, leads the Thals, if you will. And so, you know, they're just having a battle over this area of the world and trying to control it. There's certain places that are obviously impassable, and you can see that because they don't have these little dotted lines between them. Just because there's a river doesn't mean that you can't cross it. It's just there for looks and what have you. I should mention, as always, that you know, this is a prototype that I was sent. It's a very high-level prototype, but I can't guarantee that everything you see here will be exactly as is when the game is actually published. You'll notice that on the map you'll see these gold mines in these locations. Now, unlike the old like Warcraft games, the gold mines don't run out, but you do have a limit of the number of workers that you can have working on any single gold mine at any time. You can have 10 workers working on a gold mine. So you can't just, you know, get tons and tons of gold each and every turn. And each person does start with one in their home base, if you will. The game itself, as far as playing it, is very simple on this level, because you're not doing any of the battles on this. There's a battle map that I will show you in just a little bit after I get done showing you this. But there's some very core portions of the game that you have to remember. All your units stay face down on the board until you flip them over to show, like workers get flipped over. And like here's the workers of the Thals. They have slaves, and they get flipped over when you're going to be using them. So, like in the very first part of the game, you have to determine how many of your workers are going to be like working your mine, because workers can either work a mine or they can build buildings. And you get these big decks of cards that have these are all the units of the Thals, and like as you can see, there's a big deck over here for the Empire. And there's this big deck of cards, and in it they have units and they have workers. And there's some like raiders and the Thal Warband, berserkers, axe throwers. Hello, and bigger units and things like that. And then if you get to the end here, siege engines, and a sacked village. What do you think? What is that? Well, actually, that's a building. And so and you can see like buildings. They have a cost. They cost 4 gold. This one costs 4 gold to make. It has a defensive ability of 2, meaning that if after it takes 2 points of damage, it's destroyed. But it gives you plus 15 population, meaning that you can add more units to your army, workers and things like that. Slaughterhouse, these are the places that make food, and like this just generates 2 food per turn. If you need more food, you have to build these types of buildings. And so you place those things down, Ogre Hut, and obviously now remember if you played the old real-time strategy, you had to build certain buildings to allow you to build certain units. And so here you have an Ogre Hut, so if you want to be able to, this is a training place, so you have to build, so if you wanted to build, let me find that giant ogre again, like these ogres, if you notice it even says this right here, it says Ogre Hut there, that it needs to be built. And you can see the cost of these things. It costs 4 gold, 3 food, and 3 of your population to have an ogre, this savage ogre, in your party or in your army. And so, there's that. I wanted to show you this really quick. I liked this giant. All you can see is the giant axe sitting there. I thought that was really cool. Anyway, so when the game progresses, what you're going to do is the very first turn, and the Thal player goes first. They always do, but after that, it switches back and forth as far as who goes first. And so if you're playing more players or whatever, then there's a certain a certain level. Each clan has a determination as far as who it is. And I'm just going to show you these really quick. I mean, I'm not going to show you these guys, but this is one of the expansion packs, the Great Animal Kingdom, and this is my favorite one to play actually, the Covenant of Necromancers, because they're necromancers. Anyway, so what you do then is you just say, okay, well, I'm going to have 3 of these guys working this mine, and so you place that and you determine that. And so you have these 2 workers. So, maybe they're going to be building or whatever. And maybe this player just says, you know what, I'm going to have all 5 of my workers working my mine. And so that's done as well. And so each person then has these slider bars that represent the population, the food, and gold. And then you just move these up or down depending on what you've done. And so since the Thals are working gold 3, you just move this up like that to show that you have 8 food. And so you can tell what you've generated. Now, if you'd had slaughterhouses out there, say you'd had 2 slaughterhouses, you could say, well, I made 4 food, so you just move your food up like so. Pretty simple. It's just very straightforward as far as maintaining a knowledge of the level of your food. After both of you have determined how much resources you have available to you at that point, now you go into building and recruitment. Now this is where you actually are going to be building. If you have a building you want to make, then you can do that. And so, like, the Thal Warrior actually has workers available to him, and so maybe he wants to. So he's got 2 of them available, and so he's got he does have 9 gold available to him, and so he can make like a slaughterhouse, if you will. And so he's going to use that because he wants to be able to make food. And so what you do then is you take one of your workers, like so, and you just put it on top of the building that you're making. And now you know that when the end of the turn comes, you'll have completed making that building. And I'm looking at the other things that I could possibly make. And actually, you know what? I'm going to do revisionist history, and I'm going to actually ask the other player really kindly if I can just make an extra gold this turn, because I want that extra gold available, because now you can do recruitment. And now you can, remember like when you played Warcraft and stuff like that, like, workers were like the backbone of your your dynasty, if you will. If you didn't have them, you couldn't do anything else. Warriors and everything were great, but you definitely needed that. And so when you're going to be like recruiting, you have to make sure that you are getting an equal amount of workers, even though they suck up your population, but you need them to be able to propel yourself forward. So when you're going to do recruitment, yes, it's awesome to have really cool military units that you can use to attack your enemy, but it's always a good idea to make sure that you have a fair amount of the peasant farmers or slaves working the mines for you as well. When you do your recruitment, it should be noted that you get your whole deck of cards, and obviously if you have the resources available to you and you have the buildings available to you to actually make the units, then you have access to it. But you keep it secret what you're recruiting, because this is that whole fog of war aspect of the game. You don't know exactly what you're going to be fighting. And so, like, if as the Thal player, if you like wanted to make these 2 raiders, if you will, you can see that they cost 1 population, 2 food, and 1 money to make. You then just say, I'm making units, and you place them face down on the board. You have to tell the other player how much you're spending as far as the resources involved. But you do have to, and obviously after you've played the game a few times, you're going to have a fairly good idea if you place these 2 down and say like you're going to build that and another worker, if you will, like so, and you told them that you total up the amount there, which would be 2 gold, 6 food, and 3 population. You place those down and say, I'm building these units, and you place those down like so. You have to announce what you're spending, and so the other player can then have an idea of what you built. Now, after you're done with that portion of the recruitment, and I'm not doing their recruitment over here. I'm going to show you how it's played. I'm not doing like a walkthrough. Then you can move, and moving is really simple. You just move to another area that is connected, and so you have to kind of decide, what you're interested in. I mean, do you want to get to another gold mine over here and set up a base there? There's also a mercenary camp that's right here that you're allowed, if you have control over this area. Not only does it have the mercenary camp, but it has another gold mine there. And so you can hire mercenaries to make your army more powerful. And so maybe you want to strike out there. So you just place your units like so in that situation. And you can see, like at the very beginning, yeah, you're not be able to affect each other. But if the other player built a few people or whatever, I'm just going to throw some cards down, and they went there, you can see how quickly the room is, the area is shrinking, if you will. And so now, like, undoubtedly, most likely, since both people are going to be trying to head to that area, a battle is about to commence in that spot. And so, and at the same time, you could, like, if they had other units, you can move some over here, and so you can be just trying to take, and that's when the battle lines start getting drawn pretty quickly. And you then are able to go into, as soon as, people's units enter into the same area that they're going to be, or if they move into an area where somebody already is set up, that is when the actual combat begins, and that's when, like, my table isn't big enough to have both the combat map and the map of the area at the same time. So that's why I'm going to have to stop and show you that in just a little bit. But then as soon as two armies meet, or an army moves into, like, you know, for whatever reason, like an army moved into that location over there, that's when combat begins, and that's when you stop what you're doing, and, you know, theoretically your table's big enough and you have the other map next to you, and then that's when you'll place the units onto the map where the battle will take place. And let me show you how the battle works here in just a second, but I just want to make sure that you understand, like, you can notice how kind of well structured this is. I mean, it's like if you move over to take these cities over here, you can see that there's this forest here that's blocking you. You can't get through that, so you actually have to kind of go around if you wanted to attack. The same goes for this little area here. You can't get there. You know, you have to actually go around and through it in. And so you can see there's those natural choke points on this map that I really like about this map. It basically forces the combat to happen. And the other maps are like this as well, but you can check those out at the Kickstarter page or at the Board Game Geek page for the game as well. But anyway, let me just pause this right now, and actually won't be much of a pause for you due to the magic of video editing, and you will then we'll go into the battle, and I'll show you how that works as well. I'm just going to say this because I know somebody's going to wonder about this. They might notice that these are paper maps. And yes, I understand that paper maps are going to come with the game when it is published. But I do think that there is going to be an option to upgrade the map to a different quality, if you will. Now, when I play this, I actually have a piece of plexiglass that I put over the top of the paper map. I've had it forever. I've used it for both my Dungeons & Dragons games and other games as well. And the reason why I don't have that is because the lights, the glare off of that would be very obvious and disconcerting, and I didn't want to have that during the video because you would have mucked up a little bit of the artwork and what you would have been able to see. So you can pick up a piece of plexiglass really cheap at any just if you look it up in your I would say the Yellow Pages in a phone book, but who uses a phone book anymore? But I have like a hardware store actually that sells it, and so I was able to pick up a piece relatively cheaply for that purpose. But anyway, so I'm going to just do a quick couple rounds of combat to show you how it works. In this scenario, what I have is, I'm going to say like a Thal warband has moved into an area that, you know, has a castle of their opponent. Now, so you can, the first thing anything does if a building is being attacked, you place your building first. And so, like, the Empire player has placed their building down, and then you deploy your you have access to all the things that you're attacking with. I have like these four, and they have these four, and you don't have to deploy all of your units if you don't want to. You can deploy some of them, but if all of your units are ever destroyed and you still have units in your hand you're waiting to deploy, they're considered destroyed as well. So as soon as the combat begins, you have to make sure that, like, you get your units out that you want to use. You may want to, if you're going to hold some back so you can kind of try to hide them so they don't know, you know, and to surprise them, because once again, that fog of war thing, because you collect your cards and the other person doesn't know what you have. So, like, if you had, you know, like Genghis the Brutal in there and they didn't know where he was, and so he's been moving around the board, you know, you can say, like, as the combat's going, all of a sudden, aha, you know, I did have this guy and you didn't know. I'm going to show you one thing, and I just wanted to make sure you did know this. Remember I showed you that really cool giant card? Right, that? When you actually place the giant, they actually give you another card like this, because he's so big, when you place him on the board, he takes up 2 spots. How cool is that? That the giant's that big. You get to, and that's actually, yeah, that's pretty cool too, because it's pretty impressive. I had a few combats where it's just like, okay, you know, it's like, and I held my giant in reserve, and then I was just like, oh, and by the way, I have one of these guys, and oh my gosh, you know, that was pretty cool. Anyway, so. So at the beginning of the game, you determine, and I'm just going to place the units out. You know, put a Savage Ogre, Axe Throwers. They're like the ranged, and then Marauders and Marauders like that. And then they, if I can find my units again, we'll place their units as well, and they have archers and a militia and Vulcan infantry. Now, you can only place them in the front and the rear zone unless you have a special ability that allows you to place them in the flank positions over here, or you've completely filled up this zone, and then you can't add any more. So you have to. You can never put anything in the neutral zone in the middle. You'll also notice that there's these afterlife and neutral locations. When units are defeated, afterlife or dead, it'll tell you which, when things are killed, usually they go into one of those two spots. The reason is that there are certain abilities of high-level troops that allow you to do things with things that are in those locations. As you can probably guess, the Necromancers have the ability to get troops back onto the board, if you will, that have been defeated. But combat is really easy. I mean, you move by looking at your unit. I'm just going to show you this so you can kind of see what these are. You can see that there's these, and it might be very tough to see, and I apologize for that, but there's these three little symbols here. And what it does is, the first one, it tells you, like, if it has a melee attack, where it can attack. And if you can see this, there is a red arrow that points straight forward and a red arrow that points both left and right, meaning that it can attack in those three directions. And there's a little bow, and that doesn't show that it has anything, so it doesn't have a range to attack. But then there's this movement here that shows that it can move left and right, straight forward, but also the diagonal directions like that as well. And that's actually, it's pretty mobile for a unit. And then down here, you will see that it has 4 defense and 5 attack. And so if it is close enough to a unit that it can attack after the movement is done, you automatically do those attacks, and you pick where they're going to attack. So in this case, like if the Vulcan Mercenary, you can see, a Vulcan Infantry, I should say, you know, you can see they have a 2 attack and a 4 defense. They attack straight forward, left and right, and they can only move straight forward, left and right. And so if you had a situation where these two troops were like that, and they could both attack each other, all you do then is you apply the damage, and both of them get to apply the damage. So the Marauders attack, and they would do 5 damage to the unit, and since you know that the 5 is more than the 4 defense that they have, and you can see there's a little skull and like a little damage marker there, you just put the skull on, meaning that that unit is going to be killed. And then these would do 2 damage in return, and so you would place 2 damage markers like that on that particular unit. And then, like, if say the Vulcan Archers, and I'm just going to show you this, that they have a ranged attack, and so you can go ahead and so they have ranged attack both straight, like so on and so forth, like that. They have a range of 2, and so if they were back here, they could shoot them, and then they could do another point of damage like that. And so, like, when you resolve combat, you would show that. Obviously, the end goal of this is to get here and to destroy the castle. Castles can't be attacked with ranged weapons. They have to actually have somebody next to them and beating on them to destroy them. So melee attacks are what works there. But combat works pretty simple. It's a you go I go situation where each person moves their units, and then after everyone's moved, like you have situations where they end up next to each other, and then you resolve the combat by turning, okay, this guy's attacking that guy, I'm going to do this damage, you attack that one, do damage, and eventually, like, if you do enough damage to kill somebody, you just take them and you place them off to the side of the board, and they go into that pile over there. Now, it should be noted that, like, whenever you, something gets killed, you do get that population back. So, in this situation, when they built this Vulcan infantry, it cost 2 infantry. So after the battle, you get that infantry back, and you get to, I mean, not infantry, you get that population back on your marker, meaning that, you know, you would gain that. Theoretically, if you actually won the battle, because like obviously if you lost the castle, you'd have a situation where you'd lose the population for the castle as well. Now, a lot of these units, and this is where a lot of the strategy comes in, a lot of these units will have special abilities, like the Savage Ogre. Thick Skin does not receive melee damage until from unit with 2 or less melee attacks. So you have to have a big guy attack this thing. And Reach, it may melee attack forward diagonally, so like that's a pretty good ability, because then you can actually, like, because a lot of times if it's just straightforward, you don't really get to affect very many. And then Shock and Awe. Now, a lot of the units for the Thalls have the Shock and Awe ability. And what that is that if they move forward in a group together, it's kind of like well, Shock and Awe. What it is it prevents the opponent from moving their particular units around. And you can see like in some of these, like, and there's a lot of little text here, but this one is kind of cool. It's like the Glorious Charge. If you move the Marauders straight forward into somebody, they automatically get to do damage, but then they can't. And then they do damage to the one that's like right in front of them. They automatically do damage. I mean, it's stuff like that, like little tiny things that are part of the, like, different units that allow them to be more than just the numbers that are on their cards. But you know, but the thing is that I was really worried that these battles would take a long time when you would separate and you pull out this other map or have this other map to the side, and then you put all your people down, and they really don't. Basically because it's not a very big area to run around in, and it's not a very you usually don't have a ton of units involved in the combat. And so the combats do get over fairly quickly, and they're pretty bloody as well. There's one other aspect about the game that should be mentioned. You can't ever like go backwards. You basically move forward the entire time. However, you can do what's called a turnaround action, which allows you then to turn your unit around and move them around. And the reason why you want to do that is if you ever get behind a unit and attack them from behind, whether it is either range or melee, you immediately reduce their defense down to 1, which is obviously devastating because then they can easily be taken out. So as soon as you flank somebody and you can get behind them, you can destroy them relatively easily. And so you always want to make sure that you're making sure that doesn't happen to you, obviously, when you're fighting, especially some of your bigger units, because you don't want to have some like weak little unit get behind you and then just take you out relatively easily. So there you go. That's how the battles work, and it is a situation where it is kill or be killed. If nothing happens for, like, I think it's like 10 rounds where nobody gets attacked and nobody does anything, then the battle's considered a draw, and you just withdraw from battle, and then you go on and go back to the other map and continue the turn. So there you go. That's the battles, and now what I'm going to do is I really dig the game. I'm having a lot of fun with it, but let me tell you more about why I like the game in my conclusion. I feel bad because that's the only box of that in existence. Sorry, Justin. But anyway, so there you go. That's how you play Eternity Wars. Now, just a couple of quick things, then I'll get more into the gameplay and my feelings about it. I remember when the very first Warcraft game came out from Blizzard. I can remember seeing people playing it in the computer room of the college that I was attending, and at some points not attending, but still using the computers. Anyway, so people were playing this game, and I was just blown away. It just looked so cool, you know, just moving these little people around and attacking buildings and what have you. And I can remember a buddy of mine, my buddy Matt, like, he would see people that would install these games on the computers in these computer rooms at the college, and because it was all a local area network, they could play against each other, which was really awesome. And so he would actually wait for them to leave, and then he would go to those computers and he'd try to play it, and he would have to actually defeat the copy protection that in place. Back then, there wasn't like now, like lots of computer games. Well, I shouldn't say now, because most things are played online, and so they can tell whether or not you have access to the game. But back in the day, what they did was they had copy protection, and it would ask you, like, turn to page 17 of the manual and look at page 4 or look at paragraph 4 and tell us what the third word is. And then he would literally sit there and he'd guess at the what it possibly could be, and he would get it. He would just sit there and keep going and going. Oh, it's like a 4-letter word, starts with an M. Is it mine? Yes, and things like that. And so, and I remember, and he would be so happy, and then he'd go to the next computer that he knew that it was installed on, and he'd do the same thing until he could get a couple of computers set up, and then he'd play it with somebody. And then we actually then forked over the cash and bought it eventually, and then so we played it then as well. And I remember playing a lot of that game of Warcraft. I remember playing a lot of Warcraft 2. And I remember playing a lot of StarCraft, but I kind of got out of the genre, if you will. I just had moved on. I don't even know what I was playing at that point, but I think it was because I was good at them, but I was never like as good as some of the really good people, like the people that are able to just, we're able to set up all little like shortcuts and everything like that, and grabbing giant groups of troops and being able to move them and what have you. And so, there you go. That's just a little background as far as I'm concerned with the whole real-time strategy games. Now, I really, really enjoyed those games. I thought they were fun. The whole process of them was just like really innovative and really interesting. The whole process of, collecting the money, and then be able to collect, like the different types of resources, and then being able to build things and having things in queue and what have you. And if you think about it, there's like tons of games out there that just use that really basic, generic format. But there's never really been one, at least that I've really experienced, like that mirrors it really well and in a board game, until I played this game, and I was really stunned at how well it did it. I mean, it was like, when I was reading the rules, I was like, wow, it's like, wow, you put your workers in by the gold mine, and then you have to have like a building there to collect the gold. And I was just like, the tumblers are clicking through my head. I'm remembering how awesome and how much fun playing those computer games were of that process. Now, I know the argument can be made, it's like, well, if that's the case, then why don't you just go ahead and play the computer game? But there's something so non-intimate about playing the computer game with somebody across the street or across the country or on the other side of the world. But when you can sit down and you can play the game tactically with one of your friends and sit there and kind of manipulate with your hands, and I'm just more of a board game player now than I am with a computer game player. I do play some computer games. I own a PlayStation 4, which my wife was amazing and bought for me for Christmas, and I have a high-end computer that and then people are like, oh wow, do you play a lot of games on that? Because I put it together. I was like, no, I made a high-end computer so I could do a lot of video editing. So it's one of those things where I've just kind of grown out of my digital age, if you will. I've even stopped playing solo games on the computer and things like that, because I've started playing solo board games now. And so, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are in the same boat that I am. And I think this game is perfect. It's one of the best two-player games I've played in a while. That aren't like a Euro or a classic game. This is an Ameritrash game through and through. The only thing this game is missing is dice. But I understand the reason why there isn't dice. I know a few people are going to say, well, why am I not rolling the dice to see if I hit or if I do damage and things like that? And the reason is, if you think back to the old real-time strategy games, the units just did damage per second. It wasn't like it was a really random affair. They didn't miss. When they were close, they just swung their sword, repeatedly until either they were dead or the person in front of them was dead. And so, there was just when I kind of like thought about that, I was like, oh, there should be like dice. Then I thought about, no, wait a minute, there shouldn't be dice, and also, I mean, it's a really good thing that there isn't, and the reason why is because when you go to that battle map, and I had some misgivings with the battle map. I was just kind of like, you know, I mean, it's just like, because I had this flashback to Titan, and you know, and some of those like hour and hour upon long slugfests of Titan, it would just be like, oh, okay, deconstruct it down, put everything on the battle map, and then run this out, and then, you know, and so I was a little worried, but the battle map is actually, it mirrors, one, the real-time strategy feel really well. You mean, your buildings are on there, and so you got to protect those, and they have abilities and things like that. And you know, and you have a certain number of units that are available and what have you. But you know, the battle map, it mirrors the whole like tactical end of you know, the real time strategy. Now there are a lot of people that, like, when they played real time, the Zerg, or, you know, just basically the mad rush of units was their only real strategy, and it works decently well as long as you have a certain number. But there are certain things you can do as far as defenses and things like that in those games, and so you had to actually come up with a good way to, like, run your battles and run your tactics, and this game, you know, does that, and I really enjoyed the fact that there wasn't dice there, because then it wasn't that I was placing my units down for a purpose, and then I could move and attack. I wasn't going to lose just because of a few random bad dice rolls and things like that, and you know, so I kind of enjoyed that. You know, if I put myself into a position of field superiority, I knew then that I was probably going to win, and I didn't have to worry about the randomness of that situation. Now, I'm all for dice and I'm all for randomness in lots of games, but in this one, not so much. I was kind of glad that it wasn't. You know, finally, before I wrap up here, I just want to say that the artwork is absolutely amazing in this game, and it's beautiful, and I really like the fact that the designer has taken the steps to actually design a world that you're a part of, and it isn't just like, let's just come up with a couple of fantasy races and throw them at each other. Okay, okay, go. He's actually taken the time to you know, give a backstory and things like that. And I know that, like, there's going to be like an actual novel that I believe he's written that is going to be free to anybody who backs the game, you know, in like a PDF file. And it's something you can read, and so you can hear, like, you can actually see, like, you know, when you place your units down, and you know, like here, like Genghis the Brutal or whatever, you know, you're gonna have like the background, you know, for this dude, and the reason why he's there and stuff like that. You know, I desperately want this game to be published just because I want to see how the game looks at the very end. And so you know, that's one of the things, like, I've been really enjoying playing this game, playing the heck out of it, but I'm going to send it off to another reviewer because I want this to get into as many hands as possible, so we can get more and more information about the game out there, and so more people will know it exists, and then we can get it funded, and then we can get a crazy looking game. I've asked the designer, I said, you've got to make miniatures for this game. I desperately think, I mean, while the cards are cool, and I'm gonna, just another aside real quick, and I'll wrap this up, but the cards are really cool, and I feel bad because one of the things that I really bagged on a game, Summoner Wars, for was that I didn't like the cards. I didn't like moving cards around a map to determine if I won or not. You know, I wanted miniatures, and so I feel kind of like I'm bagging on that a little bit because I really, for some reason, I didn't mind the cards in this game. So it made me rethink, actually, my feelings of Summoner Wars. And I'm going to have to go back and play that, actually. And I'm going to have to revisit it, if you will. And because maybe there's a game there that I couldn't find that I really enjoy. So I need to do that. But The artwork and everything for this game is beautiful, and if they were able to make little miniatures, I know I'd spend a ton of money on them, and I'd start painting again, and because even though I have a giant backlog of miniatures to paint, but I definitely want to paint these guys and have them on this map, and you know, I really dig it. I really do. So there you go. I mean, who was this game for? This game is for a real-time strategy enthusiast that like me, you know, or it's for somebody who wants to play a splendid two-player tactical game. Now the game can expand because like there's the expansions of the two other armies. You can expand out to a 4-player game, and we tried that. It was fun, and I really enjoyed it. But it was a situation where I don't know, I missed just the kind of back and forth kind of seesaw, the ebb and flow of the 2-player game with it. And I think perhaps if I played the 4-player game first before I went to the 2-player, I would have had a better appreciation for the 4-player. But 2-player, this game is where it shines and where you really, you know, feel the game, and you really feel the energy of the game, and the game kind of opens itself up to you, and it really tells that story that I'm looking for in a game like this. So, well, there you go. That was not Patrician Wars, but Eternity Wars. Check it out. Go to Kickstarter, and you just Google search for Eternity Wars, or you can check out the link that I'll be posting down below here, and you can check that out. And then if it's something you think you'd like and you'd enjoy, I strongly suggest funking down some of your hard-earned cash and backing the game. So once it's published, you can have a copy for yourself and put it on your shelf. All right. So as always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch my videos. I greatly appreciate that. If you have any questions or concerns, I absolutely know that the designer, Justin, will be happy to answer those, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability as well. Post those below, and we'll do so. So, until next time, this was me, Undead Viking. This was my gaming dojo in Moorhead, Minnesota. And, yeah, until next time, have an awesome day. Bye-bye now.